Good afternoon and welcome to RISmedia's How to Change the Low Inventory Narrative. Unless you've been hiding under a rock for the last 6 months, you know the struggles that buyer specialists and listing specialists and agents throughout the country have in finding homes for buyers. Well, the problem is that after a while, a buyer's agent gets buyer agent fatigue and buyers get buyer fatigue. And we've got to make sure that we keep the market moving forward, so that as the market starts to recover, as it starts to get a little bit more in balance, our agents are there and ready to take advantage of the changing market. My name is Cleve Gaddis, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm coming to you today from North Atlanta, Georgia. I live in Johns Creek, 22 miles northeast of downtown Atlanta. I am a coach, a master coach with Workman Success Systems, which means I coach teams and brokerages throughout the country and help them figure out how to make a little bit more money and do it with a little bit more work-life balance, and not just make money for the sake of making money, but make money so they have the ability to do good things and help people. And I'm also a full-time real estate. I say full-time. I spend about 50% of my time actually practicing real estate in Metro Atlanta. I run a small team. We sell a couple hundred houses a year. I only spend about 40 or 50% of my time in the real estate business, but I am out there doing the exact same thing that you and your agents are doing on a daily basis. And I'm so glad you're here. I want to encourage you, if you have questions, go put them in the questions portal or the questions app on your webinar panel. In fact, I would love to see if everybody can figure out how to use that, and I would like to know where everybody is from. So tell me where you are logged in from. Go to the questions panel and put all the cities and the states in there, and I'd love to recognize where everybody is from. I'm sure we got people all over the country. We got one from Raleigh. We've got more coming in here in just a minute. If you have any difficulties, make sure you post those in the questions as well. Somebody from RISmedia will help you. And then stay on until the end slide, because we're going to have some free giveaways that we're going to give you at the end, some downloads that you can take and put to use in your business almost immediately. We got them from Seattle, Rochester, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I've been there, Vienna, Virginia, Frederick, Colorado, Key Largo, Florida. We've got Hawaii on here. I love that. My daughter lives in Hawaii. I need to go there. Salt Lake City, from the Dominican Republic. Hallelujah. I love that. We'll have to go down and get some cigars. Topeka, Kansas, Huntington, Maryland. So we've got people from all over the place. Thank you. If you have questions during the webinar, please post the questions. I'll do the best I can to monitor the questions, and we'll get those questions answered during this webinar. This webinar is sponsored by Boomtown. I happen to be a Boomtown user myself, and I love the fact that Boomtown sponsorship makes these types of webinars possible. When I'm not moderating the webinars, I try to attend them because it's some of the most valuable information I find that I can get from industry professionals who are out there doing what we do on a daily basis, who are out there in the trenches. And I'd love to recognize Mac Hill. Mac, you and I've done a couple of these together. You are a customer advocacy and influence manager. I love that title. And so I'd love to give you just a few minutes to talk a little bit about Boomtown and why somebody might want to look in Boomtown. Not that somebody needs to get a Boomtown site, but why they might want to consider it if they're looking to change their website and their CRM.
Right, absolutely. Thanks, Cleve. It's good to be back with you again. Sort of talking through being a part of sponsoring this RISmedia webinar. We love events like this because our core mission is simply to make real estate agents more successful. And we do that in a variety of ways. And as you all know, inventory has been a challenge this year, and it's led to a trickle-down effect of other things. So I wanted to kind of highlight some of the things that you already know to see just how drastic of a challenge it's been. So Cleve, if you wouldn't mind popping over, as you can see, we've seen a massive decrease in inventory across the years. This has led to a lot of challenge. Cleve mentioned agent burnout. On top of that, there's disruptive softwares and services entering the market. We're seeing a lot of continuity issues where consumers aren't sticking with their agents for next sales down the line. So, we're trying to keep an eye on what's going on and tailor our services and software solutions to address those challenges. There is some good news, and talking to our friends at KCM, about 65% of the economists that they surveyed think that inventory will be correcting itself over the next year. Obviously, there are some that think it'll be a little bit more long term, but in the meantime, we have a lot of technology and services to help empower you guys to address some of the challenges in this market. We want to blend state-of-the-art technology with services such as our success assurance, which is in-house concierge. Obviously, if you're fighting for every deal, you're extremely busy. You need to still continue to move leads through the pipeline and follow up with your past clients. And if you're in the weeds, it's going to be hard to do that. So we've built out an entire domestic concierge team to assist our clients with following up those people so they don't have those dips in production a year down the line. On top of that, we've rolled out some new features and functionality to help address getting more seller opportunities, because we know that that's key in this market. Intuitive landing page builders, that allows you all to build CTAs around home valuations, seller tools, and the like. Dynamic remarketing is really popular with a lot of our clients right now, because they can follow their database around and keep them coming back to their branding and their website. So, all to say that we do a lot to try and listen to what's going on in the market and frame solutions that match the challenges that you all have, along with all of the other tools and technologies that we offer here at Boomtown. So again, I just want to thank everyone for giving me an opportunity to speak and share with you all, and Cleve and RIS for having an opportunity to talk about what Boomtown's doing. But I'll be here to answer any questions, but otherwise, you've got incredible experts to share a wealth of information, Mahala, Doug, and Cleve. So looking forward to learning a lot from you guys.
And Mac, if you don't mind, I might loop you back into the conversation as we move forward. You mentioned Absolutely. That we have two very well qualified panelists, and that is an understatement. I have done many of these RISMedia webinars, and very rarely do I have two such powerful, here's what I am, here's what I do, here's how we make the business work. And I want to recognize each one of them. First, we have Mahala Landon, who's with the Rachel Kendall team out of Raleigh, or I think they call it the Tri-Cities area, I don't remember. And the reality is that she's all about culture, she's all about core values, she serves in that sales manager role. And I'm telling you, I thought about moving up there so I can work with her, because I think she is a numbers person and she understands how to help salespeople be successful. And she's got some very interesting ways of looking at the market today. And so I'm so excited to have her here. Our next panelist is Doug Geek, who is with 8Z Real Estate. Doug is he's a visionary. He's a leader in his company, and he is all about offering products that consumers want as a way to get them in the door of your establishment. And I don't mean in the physical door, I mean get them to register or come in as a lead or raise their hand saying, I want some help. And I think that all of you in attendance today are going to get some very interesting perspective on how to change the narrative, how to change the conversations with agents and with home buyers and sellers out there in the market today. So Mahala, welcome. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Cleve. I'm so happy to be here.
And Doug, thank you so much for joining as well. Mahala, I'm going to start with a conversation for a few minutes with you. And when we were on our pre-webinar call, you talked about one of the things that people need to focus on is the designation of agency. And I'll be honest with you, when you first said that, I'm thinking, I have no idea what she's talking about. But the concept of helping certain types of agents look for opportunities for others is fascinating. So talk about what you're doing on your team regarding designation of agency.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a differentiator for our company. But it really works well in our market because we're in the triangle, like you mentioned, and we're one of the second fastest growing metropolitan areas just behind Austin, Texas. So we really do see an influx of buyer leads. And I know right now with this conversation about low inventory, we're so focused on listings. But one of the things that we work with our agents on as buyers agents is that they really are the front end of our lead generation systems. So every lead that comes in we consider a buyer lead, regardless of whether or not they have a home to sell. We're of course going to ask that question because we do believe that every lead that comes in, 60% of those should be listings as well. So we use that buyer agent powerhouse to catch the leads, to field the leads, and to convert those leads into different opportunities.
So Mahala, let me ask you, if you didn't push that with your buyer's agents, and I'd like you to give me an estimate, from 0 to 100%, what percentage of your buyer agents do you think would focus on that naturally if you were not pushing them to focus on the listing opportunities?
I mean, I don't think it's natural because we constantly talk about lead generation as buyer leads. And so we forget to ask that question. And so when we're empowering with training and scripting practice to make sure we're always asking the question of, in the event that I find you the home that's going to work for you, do you have a home to sell? Because the reality is, with the strength of our market, we are seeing people making the decision not to put the money back into their home, but to actually step up and to go ahead and take that opportunity to move forward while they can capitalize on the equity in their home.
And it's so interesting, Mahal, I wasn't trying to set you up for a specific answer, but it sounds like you're saying that the percentage of agents who might look for opportunities correctly might be closer to 0. And I don't mention that because I'm trying to poke fun at agents or be disrespectful to agents, but I think the reality is sometimes agents can be so myopic in the way they focus. They're focusing on one thing only, and maybe it's themselves, maybe it's commission, whatever the heck it is. And the more I think we can open our agents' eyes to the opportunities that are all around them, the better. You mentioned, Mahala, in our pre-webinar call that your turnover rate and your turnover time frame in your area is very good. Talk about that just a little bit, and it really feeds into why you have to make sure that your buyer's agents are talking about things on the seller side of the business.
Absolutely. So we're seeing that people are able to move every 3 to 5 years, which then puts an enormous emphasis on the work that we're doing with our past clients, with our sphere of influence. So yes, these buyer leads are great opportunities for a new agent, a new buyer's agent, to build that database and to build a really healthy pipeline to be able to get to that second or third year of real estate where their seller leads are really coming in from where they should be coming in from, which is their past clients and their sphere of influence. We always talk about the idea that we want to catch those sellers before they actually get back on the internet, right? And that's one thing that we work with in our database is that from the minute we get that lead generation, we need to make sure that we're creating that top 100 program, that, raving fan program, and we continue to use that database to make sure that we're staying in touch with them and we're bringing those sellers back. And it's creating goals with your clients. It's listening to what they say on that first initial call, that speed to lead opportunity that you have with that first conversation, and really taking the client's narrow focus and expanding it out into something that an agent can actually work with in this low inventory. So yes, I'm hearing what you're saying, but if I were to find you that same house over here or over here, I mean, the triangle, we're very lucky, has a great infrastructure of highways. So somebody coming from outside of our market, they may say, I only want to be 40 minutes from work. Well, they don't realize that could take them, miles away from the major metro areas. So it's listening to what they're saying, creating goals for them, and then also saying, could we put you in something today? And we can always go ahead and sell that. So that's like, residual income coming there.
So let me ask you, so in some cases, you're saying to buyers, hey, this works about as closely as we can make it for you. But since your market moves so quickly, if they buy it and they live there 2 or 3 years and they want to do something else, it really shouldn't be a big deal. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I did a consult this morning with a client coming in from West Virginia whose market is very different than ours. And yeah, they do have the income and the financial ability to purchase something that could be their forever home. But that's not today. So today, could we get you in something better than paying rent and give you the opportunity to compete once you actually relocate here? That's one thing with an entrance state that you have to consider is that, there is going to be some concessions, and it may be just creating a path for that client to be able to flip that house in 2 to 3 years. And because of our appreciation and the way this market is going, we have that ability to present that solution.
Absolutely. You and Doug both are going to talk a little bit about past clients and sphere. And I feel like sometimes when we're having conversations about changing the narrative about low inventory, that the attendees, the listeners will think, duh, everybody knows you need to do that. But the reality is most people don't do what they need to do. So let's talk a little bit about past clients and sphere. And I think this was something Doug mentioned, but 91% of consumers, I think this is a National Association of Realtors statistics, say they work with their agent, but only 13%, or work with their prior agent, but only 13% did. So what are you doing in your team in North Carolina to focus on past clients and Sphere? I heard you mention Top 100 program.
Yeah, so from the minute that that new buyer's agent, working to build up that buyer database starts to do that, we start talking about, how are we going to continue to touch them on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis, whether that's just through home valuation solutions, or just, picking up the phone, texting, any kind of automation that we can do just to be consistent and top of mind. And I do love landing pages for this particular reason, because we can deliver a mailer that has dynamic content, and we can actually start to see whether or not that mailer is actually received, opened, and did it have that call to action that actually brought them back to the site. I think we take for granted that clients want to continue to hear from us even after closing. We are relationship focused. So these people feel abandoned if we're not talking to them after the closing table. So it's about meeting them where they are. And once they close, they're sellers. And whether that's 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, we need to continue to talk to them about the things that are relevant to them, about their home, their resources, the education, lending, whatever the case might be. We need to be that resource that we were when we got them there.
Absolutely. And Mahala, one of the interesting things that I thought you just mentioned is you're looking at your relationship with your past clients and your Sphere, and you're really looking at it similarly to the way most of us would look at generating a new lead. So you're communicating with them in ways that are designed to make them interact with you. And
yeah, at the end of the day, it's the public, right? Like, it's the same as if you were going to go do a canvassing or farming initiative. You are communicating with them because they're back on the circle of life of being the public. So they want to know your reputation, what you can do for them, how you can continue to be of value and service. And we need to be willing to give that to them.
Which is interesting. I heard somebody earlier today on another webinar that I was on use the letters SRO. And this gentleman said that stood for serve regardless of opportunity. And it sounds like you're saying exactly the same thing. You got to get out there and find ways to serve these people. One of the other things that I heard this gentleman mention was that past clients and Sphere, people, agents who have a business that is predominantly past clients and Sphere are being much more successful in today's market. And I'm thinking, I wonder why. And then he went on to say, because the people who have been your past clients and who are in your Sphere already know, love, and trust you. So when you tell them what they need to do in order to be successful in today's market, they listen. So anything you can do to build your past clients and Sphere is a good thing. Talk to us a little bit about your Top 100 program, if you don't mind giving out your secrets.
Sure, yeah. Our Top 100 program is a combination of direct mail. We use some smaller services like Lolo, and we like to support local businesses as much as possible, just to, send that text, go get a beer, and hey, nothing better than them, inviting us to come there too. As well as a lot of home valuation tools, talking to them about what their goals are. Second home inventory is a great opportunity with your past clients. So, maybe they're not willing to move, but that ability for them to have that additional equity could present that second home opportunity. So I think when you look at it that way, there's so much opportunity, and we really do count our past client referral business into that same Top 100 program. And we try and, monitor and count how many past client referrals were given as a result of just keeping that relationship alive.
And so let me ask you, do you have any numbers? You seem to really be data oriented. Do you know how many of 100 people in your past client or Sphere database might give your agent a referral on an annual basis?
So we are a team of about 20 agents, and wow. we do 55% past client referral business. So, I think when you look at it in percentages, and when you look at the breadth of the tenure of the team, we have some that are green agents that are just gearing up, and then we have some that have been in the business for 10, 15 years. So each one of them bring a different value set to the table. But I think when you start from the beginning, especially as a team owners really need to focus in on this, start from the beginning. When you think about how you're going to manage your database, you've got to think about it not only from lead generation, but also how you're going to use it for past client relationships.
Exactly. And what is your CRM? What do you use for your past client and your Sphere follow-up?
We do use Boomtown. We use Boomtown lead generation as well as integrating it into other solutions for past client. We absolutely love the automation of it, so it makes it really easy. Even if it's just scheduling your own to-do, right? Because we don't want to be canned, we don't want to be spammy, but we do need that accountability to remember to do what it is we need to do.
If you had a top 100 program that had, following up with 100 people every month and just showing them some love, you wouldn't have to do much more than that, just to let them know you care, let them know you're there for them. I think this is so very important. And 55% past client and sphere business is huge. Congratulations to you on that. I know that's not easy to do. So as you look at it as a broker, as a leader, as a team leader, you're thinking, okay, how do I use this to change the narrative? The narrative is this, is if you're an agent, in my opinion, Mahala, and you tell me if I'm correct, but in my opinion, if you're an agent and you're struggling in today's market, it's probably because you haven't been doing the right things over the years with your past clients in sphere, and there's no better time to start than today. So as a owner or a team leader, if you can get agents focused on doing something, then you'll put them in a lot better position as the market recovers. You agree with that, Mahala?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Not only that, but with the idea that remember to start as a buyer's agent and build that buyer pipeline. And even if that buyer pipeline has to be a little bit more robust than it had to be in years past, that's the long game, right? So with every family that you help, you're creating that new past client, you're creating that new opportunity in the future.
Well, let's talk about that for just a second. So as you talk about, sort of lead flow and monitoring things and having to do more work, like you have some specific information about how many more offers today somebody needs to make in order to get a deal done.
It's the offers, but it's also about, who's in your car. So, remember, we're talking about buyer's agents and avoiding that, burnout or avoiding that churn that you sometimes see in the first couple of years of real estate. And, when you put all your eggs in one basket, you're really setting yourself up for failure. So it's not about, not helping anybody, but it's really about having the right opportunities, because we don't force people to buy houses. And this is a very competitive environment. And just because you can get approved for a loan doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the market. So we work with our agents lately, and we're starting to see, we're a 24 minimum transaction a year per agent.
Good.
And in order to achieve those results, we're seeing that people have to have 4 to 6 A's, people that are in their car ready to go, not 30 days from now, but today, right? So that they can hit those goals that they have for themselves, and also meet their clients where they are, whether those are through objections or whether it's truly an inventory issue that's keeping them from being able to get into a home. So, what worked a few years ago, that's not going to work today if you have specific goals for yourself as an agent.
So in other words, you might have to do 3 or 4 times as much work in order to get a deal or to get 2 deals as you would have in the past. But the reality is, that's the way it is. If you're going to get the closings, you got to do what you got to do. So you mentioned 4 to 6 A's, people ready to go. You've got them in the car, taking them. You also, I think, use a B and a C categorization. Talk to us about what those mean, and then how many of each one of those you think your average team agent should have.
Yeah, so just to keep it on that 24 transactions a year, they really do need to have somewhere between 12 and 24 Bs, just depending on what's keeping them. If it's truly a timeline issue, then that should be able to present every 3 months the opportunities for them to hit their numbers, and then 75 Cs. And using Boomtown and using a database that allows for managing so many people in your pipeline, focus in on what's in there and, move the rest of it to the side, because, it's in our market, at least, it's not about necessarily enough leads. It's about working the leads that really are ready to be closed, and you're spending the time in the right places so that you're not burning yourself out.
And for those who are listening, can you give us a definition of a B and a definition of a C, just to clarify?
Yeah, we use our B nurtures as 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
And we use our C watches as they're in real estate in this year, right? They're telling us within a 12-month period they want to purchase a home, and that's really the best place to fish out of in terms of nurturing and moving people through the pipeline.
Love it. And there have got to be people listening going, hey, the answer cannot be that simple as to really monitor the agent's pipeline and to keep 4 to 6 A's, 12 to 25 B's, and 75 C's. But in reality, that's probably a lot of the way you're managing your salespeople. Am I correct?
Yeah, and then anything that's not fitting in those categories, we limit how many archive leads that they can actually manage, because it's not, yes, we have conversation goals, and yes, we have, prospecting goals, but it's really about quality work and working smarter and not harder, and not just going through a rote motion just to go through it. Focusing on the relationship from the beginning. And that really is the reward, right? Because when you talk to somebody that's a year out and then you get them in the home, that's why we became real estate agents. That's the really great piece of this business.
Absolutely. Changing subjects here for just a second. You think that a lot of the communication that agents put out in emails and on social media is a little bit harmful to their business. Let's talk about that and how we need to redirect the conversations our agents are having with the public.
We 100% use our social media and use our automation content to speak to our clients. And the last thing we want to do is create fear about this market, because at the end of the day, it is a great time to be in real estate. So we do talk about that narrative. I mean, even this headline of being on this panel is kind of scary, right? We have to change this narrative, but our roles as educators and about counselors in this market is to diffuse the fear about what's going on right now. And so, yeah, no, we don't use sensational headlines. We are not always talking about inventory, because that's going to keep sellers and buyers from making a really smart decision about their real estate, about their wealth, about just, making the next move in their life. From the time that I started as a buyer's agent till now, it hasn't slowed down. So it's not going to, at least in our market. Things will change. We'll always see shifts. There's always going to be that disruptor. And so it's our jobs as real estate agents to make sure that our clients feel really comfortable and confident to make decisions.
So if you're going to change the narrative in your office or on your team, make sure you're helping your agents understand the best ways to communicate. The reality is, you see posts on social media all the time that says, we listed it yesterday at 8 o'clock. We had 12,600 showings by noon, and we had 412 offers. I'm making those numbers up, but that stuff does not help the real estate industry. In fact, what you should say is, I think you should sell your home by owner, because that's what they hear when you're saying it's so easy and everything works fine. So there's really something to be said for just tell agents to be honest in the way they communicate. Talk about, don't name buyers' names, but talk about issues that come up in a transaction and how you work through those, and talk about issues that you have in preparing a home for sale and how you deal with them, because people are fascinated by that. And if you give them information that is attractive to them, they will exchange their information with you and be in your pipeline moving forward. What a great concept. Let's get into also, in the first place, let's get into buyers and what they're telling you they want to have in a house, and how what they buy is very different. And I know everybody on here has heard buyers are liars, but I think some people don't really truly understand what that means.
Yeah, it's all about that initial consult and making sure that your agents are trained to really, for lack of a better way to say it, get in their underwear drawer. You need to make sure that you're talking about money from the get-go, that you really understand all the different opportunities. This morning on that consult, and just like you said, Cleve, bring it back to real life situations. It's my job to present as many different solutions as possible, and for the client to say no. I'm not going to make the decision for them. I'm not going to tell them that they're not going to be able to perform in this market. Everybody can perform in this market, but they need to be able to say, okay, now that I understand what this market looks like, here are what my boundaries are. Here's what my picture is. And if that doesn't line up to yours, as you're the expert, then you need to set some better expectations with the client and make sure that you're on the same page, because that's what's going to be able to get them to make that sight unseen offer, get them to put enormous amounts of money into due diligence if that's what it takes. Because if they don't know what they're saying no to, then they could, again, miss out on an opportunity to get into the home that works for their family.
That is such an interesting concept, is you got to know K-N-O-W, what you're saying no, N-O to. And historically, if you took buyers out and you showed them houses that did not perfectly match their criteria, they would get upset with the agent. Could it be today, Mahala, that if buyers agents don't go out and show their buyers properties that don't necessarily fit their criteria, that they're not doing a good job of representing that buyer?
I think it's all about using what's available. So, our area is very spread out, but a home in Fuquay-Varina could be identical to a home in Wake Forest. If I can get you into Fuquay-Varina to go look at that home, knowing that you don't want to be there, I'm going to go do that, because it's about you trying on a few things, seeing what works for you. What does the space feel like? It's going through the experience. I'm very, very big into client experience, customer experience. It's about creating that experience that they can see themselves saying yes to. And then when that home in Wake Forest comes up and they're ready to pull the trigger, they're ready to go. They know that that's going to be a home that works for them because they've at least seen it. So it's hearing them and providing a solution so that they can be ready to go when the time comes.
And it's so interesting when they know what they're saying no to, then it makes them saying yes to a particular property much, much easier. So I know you talked about searching, gathering information specifically, but searching a little more generally. And you also talked about getting people out into different geographic locations to consider, which you've hit on just a little bit. Is there anything else you'd like to add on that subject?
I think it is really all about listening to what they say. I mean, especially in our market where we have a lot of people relocating, they don't have that familiarity with how our infrastructure is, how long it would take for them to get to the Research Triangle Park or to the downtown Raleigh area. They hear on all these major magazines, Forbes and US Today, they hear that Raleigh is the place to be, and so they're not as comfortable making a decision. But we have so many wonderful bedroom communities, and it's our responsibility, because we know where the growth is going, is to bring them out there and say, this is a great opportunity for you today and also for the future. And that just helps, the team as well with continuing that farming direct mail campaigns, because you're able to spread out just a little bit more in your demographic too.
Good stuff. And I do want to talk as our last subject about farming and direct mail. A lot of people, I think, are hesitant to do farming and direct mail in today's world because they think there's so much competition, but it sounds like you guys are figuring out ways to make it work, and more importantly, ways to understand whether or not it's working, which is, in my opinion, 150% of the battle.
Yeah, I think direct mail and farming is a awesome strategy for creating inventory and creating sellers. And yeah, it is a little old school, but it's like, how do you leverage it with your other content that you're creating? And that's one thing I work with our marketing team on, is you're going to the effort of creating all this content. How many times can we use it? Can we get it on a direct mail? Can we put it in social media? Can we do an email campaign? Can we, put a QR code on it, direct mail? How many ways can I leverage this really great content that we're doing? Because the minute that sign goes in the yard, that's the trickle down effect, right? That's when your Boomtown leads increase. That's when your open house conversions increase. So the opportunity for the team to get that sign in the yard is really, is very important. We put QR codes on all of our direct mail so that we can track that landing page. But then also there's some great reports within our website through Boomtown where you can see, okay, how many impressions am I making? Did this actually drive any business there? Because, with marketing, it's two things. It's not just about the lead generation. It's also about the brand and the reputation. So
That's
being
true.
front of mind doesn't necessarily, equal a lead, but it absolutely can create a wonderful reputation with sellers, because if they see you working that hard for other people, they're going to want that hard work too.
And Mahala, I talked to an agent a couple of days ago who was just mailing out, we have a buyer letter, because they've got tons of buyers who are trying to find houses and they can't find a house. So they are mailing saying, hey, we've got a buyer and they're looking for this and they'd like to live in your neighborhood. And their response rate was only 0.25%. But the reality is, for every 400 of those they'd mail out, they'd get a new listing. And I don't know about you guys, but you could afford $400 all day long to get a new listing. Any comments on sort of what your return rates are and what your response rates are?
So we're pretty new in our campaigns that we've been doing, but when we look at our landing pages, we really look at it more specifically to each agent, and we're getting probably a good 1% of at least impressions coming into the landing pages. And I think as we continue to do that, I mean, we have already created 3 listings within one community just from one sign, and that's within the last 6 months. So sometimes, again, it's not necessarily the website traffic that you're monitoring, like what your friend shared about the letter. It's really about the sign in the yard. So if I can get 3 signs in 6 months in one neighborhood, well, that's a success.
And Mac, do you have other Boomtown users who are doing some direct mail and combining that with Boomtown landing pages?
Yeah, this is a relatively newer feature. Mahala is certainly one of the preeminent users of it.
Okay.
She's figured it out the most quickly with her marketing team, and we're trying to showcase it to other clients as well. But it's a great theory because you want to have proof in the pudding of how successful these campaigns are and driving them back to a landing page which has additional information that you can't necessarily fit on a postcard with call to action. You can do a lot more with it by combining this old school tactic with a relatively new piece of technology and feature.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Mahala, thank you so much. You have been a wealth of knowledge. I might get you to circle back in as I'm having some conversations with Doug, but I think you have been so helpful to everybody in attendance today. Let's switch gears now and go to Doug. Doug, how are you, sir?
Hey everybody, glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Cleve.
Thank you for being patient. As I mentioned, you are a real tactician. You know how to generate leads. And one of the things that I wanted to mention with the last slide with Mahala is that people will give you their information if there is an adequate value exchange, meaning if you're giving them something that the value equals the exposure they're going to have if they give you their name, address, and phone number, then they're likely to do that. And I know you know 60 different ways or more to do that. But let's talk first about your agents needing to focus on FSBOs, coming soons, and also exclusives. And as we get into that exclusive territory, we have to be a little careful because rules are different everywhere, and we've got some coming rules that control whether or not you can have pocket listings and things like that. But talk about what you're doing in your brokerage.
Yeah, and I'll be really clear about exclusives and all that. We want maximum exposure. We're not using that. We're not interested in controlling inventory within our brokerage. That is not our style. We want to expose it to everybody. But I think as you are in the market, you got to be really aware. If you're simply reliant on the new listings coming on the MLS, you're in trouble because we're in such a severely limited inventory. And my hat's off to Mahala and everything she talked about. But I think we're really clear on FSBOs. Hopefully you have radar and coming soon. There's a lot of resources to get that. If your local MLS hopefully has them. Of course, Zillow is a place you can check those. But what about that database, right? Homeowners, and you get to say really cool things in a limited inventory market. Like, well, if I could get this price for your house, would you be interested? That changes the narrative. Instead of let me tell you what your home's worth, you can say some pretty exorbitant numbers that start to get people off the shelf.
You get them excited. Exactly right. And how about having your agents look at FSBOs? I mean, there's always a chance that they're not going to be paid a commission if they try to sell a FSBO. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think it's always clients first for us. We want to get people across the finish line, but I think a FSBO in general is typically overwhelmed, and I'd say more often than not, you are going to receive a commission. And in a limited inventory market, your buyer's client might be willing to pay a commission to you because you actually found a house and got them across the finish line.
That's such great information. And many agents out there in the market today are looking at FSBOs the way they would have 5 or 6 years ago. And the reality is, if you're going to help people, you have got to help people. I want to change subjects for just a second, Doug, and talk about what's called a motivated seller index. And this is very interesting. And for those of you who stay on to the end and you go to the landing page, we're going to give you this as a free giveaway so you can see in Central or Middle Tennessee, you can see how they use what's called a motivated seller index. And what they're doing, Doug, and tell me what you think about this, is they're saying, hey, if you work with us, we have some data in place where we can show you where the most motivated sellers are, and we can identify those properties for you. And what they do is they broke down their whole market area based on the months of inventory in different geographic areas, in their case, zip codes. And then they identify the ones with the most inventory, the middle inventory, and the least inventory, and they call that the motivated seller index. What do you think of that concept?
I think it's amazing. I think you just came with a unique value proposition and probably have people more inclined to work with you because you're bringing something to the table that your competition isn't.
Yep. Let me mention this. In the city of Atlanta, and I don't know how it is everywhere else, if you asked people how many listings changed the price, had to decrease the price in the last week, most of the answers I get are close to zero. The reality is in Metro Atlanta, there were 574 home sellers who reduced the price of their listing last week. 574. Now, I don't know about you, but if I were a buyer and you could send me a list of all of the homes in my geographic area, in my price range where the seller dropped the price, I might be willing to use you because I think you're more helpful in identifying sellers who might be interested in having a reasonable discussion and a normal negotiation with me. So if you stay on to the end, I'm going to give you a free graphic that shows you exactly what one of these motivated seller indexes looks like. Doug, any comments there?
Yeah, it might seem a little crazy, but overpricing still happens even in our limited inventory market, and it flips the narrative to the buyer's advantage. You know, we're Boomtown users too,
Okay.
and we set up price reduction alerts because it flips the narrative to our buyers being in control, more control. I'm not saying they're going to get everything they want, but they're finding the diamond in the rough. They're finding that inventory that people aren't looking at on the Thursday and the second time around because it's at a price reduction and now it has stigmatized. Is it really stigmatized? Probably not, but it is an opportunity for our buyers that they're probably not focused on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that I heard somebody say, and I'd like to get your comment on this, is that having a system for marketing is not enough. You have to name the system. You have to have proprietary language. And I know that's a big deal in your firm because you talked about the different ways you sell properties, and each one of those has a different name. So those of you who are thinking, well, anybody can show people who have price reductions in the market, it doesn't mean you have a specific system for it and that it is named. So talk to me about the importance of proprietary language.
Yeah, it's a little annoying sometimes to come up with names for all these things, but it's a really good thought process because it's a unique identifier to you and your brand and your clients in the market. And we have a lot of this going on. So Mahala talked a ton about staying in touch with clients.
Yes.
After the closing, long after the transaction happens, right? And that's a place where that 90-10 number kept me up at night. I just couldn't stand the fact that we do such an amazing job transactionally, and then downstream, they use somebody else because we didn't stay front of mind. So I really think that it's good to view yourself as a consultant. And we came up with a program called the 8Z Collective. I encourage everybody to go check it out if you're really interested. You can see the entirety of it, 8zcollective.com, very easy URL. But it's a series of touches that we've automated from the broker standpoint to keep the agents in transactions, in deals. We're actually got 60 plus touches that go out to the client in a given year to let them know we're still there. You know, they can call us for anything that they have going on. You know, garbage disposal broke. We're here. We're your real estate experts, regardless of what your question is. But the one I really want to highlight is our annual real estate review. So as a consultant, we like to sit down with clients at least once a year and go over their real estate portfolio. And it's really cool conversations when you get to say things like you have $100,000 in equity, you have $200,000 in equity, because It wakes up possibilities, right? It gets them thinking about maybe I can buy investment property, or wow, I didn't realize I had that much money. Maybe it is an opportunity for me to move up in the market.
Mm-hmm. And you think, Doug, that everybody knows that, but the reality is they don't know nearly as much about real estate and values and equity as you do because they don't even think about it. So make sure your agents understand that if you want to stay top of mind with your potential seller clients and your past clients, that you give them information that is valuable to them. Mahala's numbers were incredible, 55% past client and sphere business. You guys have even stepped it up a notch further. I understand that of your 2,800 closings in the last 12 months, about 75% of those are past clients and sphere. Is that right?
That is exactly right. So we focus so much of our time on incubating and nurturing the database we already have spent all this time building, right? And everything that Mahala mentioned is totally true. I mean, we have new agents that have to build the database, and lead generation is important. But if you focus on the people you already have, good results come.
And it is so much easier to do business with somebody that already knows, loves, and trusts you. The problem is We don't follow up with them after closing. We remember 2 years later that we should have followed up and we never did, and we don't know how to get that started. What would your advice be to someone who has sort of let their database get stale? What would be your advice on kind of getting started with some kind of loyalty program like you guys have?
This might be a pretty blatant answer, but just do it. I think a lot of people understand or get caught up in, I haven't talked to them in 2 years, it's going to be weird, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. But the more time you let go by, the worse it's going to get, right? And Mahala said it, go out and get a beer with them. The first place I would start as an individual agent on the ground is I'd pick up that phone and just start dialing A through Z and just say, how are you doing? But there are programs out there. You know, your CRM, Boomtown does a really good job for us of keeping in touch with clients. Most CRMs do. And then what other things can you leverage outside of that? You know, look up the annual real estate review. It's not commonplace. It's not our proprietary to us. It's something everybody can do. And it's sitting down. We go macro to micro of telling them what's happening in the nation, what's happening in the state, what's happening in your city, neighborhood, and then your house. You can form that however you want to form it. And there's tons of programs out there that you can leverage. A big one for us is HomeBot, super sticky. It delivers once a month, a little home evaluation, and it's like a 75% open rate. So
I was going to say, when you say super sticky, I love that, meaning people will interact with it when you send them out there because it's sent it out there. It's so personal. I have to ask you, Doug, real quick. Now, you and Mahala have both mentioned drinking beer as part of your past clients beer program. Do we have an issue here that we need to deal with? Do we need to get you guys in some kind of program? I'm sorry. I'm just totally kidding. If your agents are having a hard time following up with people because they haven't followed up in a while, I ask you to please help your agents understand that just be human, be vulnerable with them. So it's nothing wrong with calling somebody and saying, hey, I should have followed up with you and I'm disappointed in myself and I'd like to get myself back on track, because people love humanness, and that humanness is that vulnerability. Any other comments, Doug, before we move on to the next subject?
I think as a consultant, you have such an opportunity, because in Mahala's market, which I'm insanely jealous of, 3.5 years cycle time, right? We're getting close to 10 years in Colorado in the market I service. So they don't do this every day and they don't know what they're doing, but the reality is it's probably their greatest financial asset they have. So keep them in touch with that, albeit periodically. You don't need to hound them all the time, but keep them in tune with that, and guess who they're going to call the next time they need help transacting.
100% you. In fact, if you're going to apply for a job in Mahala's firm, I'm first. I've already applied to move up there where the turnover rate is every 3 to 5 years. It's probably closer to 11 years right now in the city of Atlanta. Let's talk about actually creating more inventory. Every seller in the world, Doug, should know that now is a perfect time to sell a house. But you're saying, yes, they might know it's a perfect time to sell a house, but they're scared to death and they're afraid to jump in the pool. So talk to us about some of the creative things you're doing to get homeowners unstuck so they'll put their house on the market.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to stay on the fence right now, because as much as they're hearing it's nice time to sell, they're also knowing that it's going to be a really hard time to buy. And fortunately for us in real estate, I'd say there's never been a better time to be a real estate professional. There's billions of dollars entering our market in what most people would call disruptors, that are bringing solutions to the table that might seem a little bit scary and like they might be trying to kick you out of the deal. But you know, we've been fortunate enough to embrace that tidal wave of technology that's coming and these alternative solutions. And it's really awesome because we get to bring a unique value proposition to the table and really allow people to do things that they didn't realize they could ever do before. So you don't have to develop these in-house. Plenty of these providers, you know, there's, I don't know, 7 or 8 bridge providers now. There's a ton of cash offer programs coming to the table, and they, believe it or not, they realize how hard it is to generate leads, and they want realtors, they want us in the transaction, because we can bring the client to the table. But what's really amazing is we can unstick our clients. We can offer buy before you sell solutions. And honestly, 95% of the time, they're not choosing the alternative route. Some of them are, and it's great, and they're not afraid of the fees, but it gets a real estate conversation started. So you can do it the old-fashioned way, the triple Lindy, let's close on the same date post occupancy, so on and so forth. But by creating these unique value propositions and coming with them, ours are, we call it the umbrella of 8Z Select, and then you have 8Z Instant Sell, so institutional buyers, and we'll go get all the offers for everybody. Under that is 8Z Bridge, and then under that is Open Market, so traditional sell. And we have a little concierge program where we'll help them fix their house up in that. But with that, it's getting us into the living room to have real estate conversations and help people realize, we're able to educate and help people realize what the market really is like and what they can actually do.
So what's interesting is you're almost saying, hey, the companies that are coming into our business trying to disrupt our business, we need to offer the same things they offer, because number one, sometimes it's the right thing for the consumer to do or to have or to take advantage of. But the truth of the matter is if you can get them started having conversations with you, a lot of them, I don't remember what you called sort of your market sale, but the majority of the people will use that market sale anyway.
Yeah, Open Market, which is just traditional listing of real estate, is 95% of the time.
That's amazing.
So it's not that big of a change, but being able to leverage different solutions gets us in the door, and it's really cool because now you're not fighting against your competition about winning a listing. They're just choosing one of your options, and you get to be Switzerland. They get to choose their adventure, but they're using you no matter what adventure they choose.
For those who want some cool messaging, I heard an agent on the radio not too long ago say that they could help sell your home for $28,000 more than your neighbor sold their home for. And the whole premise is they use the improvement. Hey, we'll get you the money and we will help you improve your home. There's national companies that will actually do that for you, so that instead of selling it for $350, you can sell it for $400, and the only difference in the cost is the $20 to fix it up. And it was such a powerful message, because I'm driving down the road and I'm thinking, I want to sell my house for $28,000 more than my neighbor. Absolutely, positively. So it's having that messaging that brings people into the fold so that you can start the process of trying to convert them. Go over those choices that you had one more time, because some of the attendees might want to write those down because they might want to create some similar programs.
Absolutely. And you can go to our website, AZ.com, to check this out and go to sell with us. But excuse me, it's AZ Select is the umbrella, and then underneath it is Instant Sell. So that's where we will go and get all of the institutional buyers offers, all the iBuyer offers, and bring them all to the table in one place. So the consumer doesn't have to go through the pain of clicking the button here and clicking the button here and clicking the button here. You can bring them all. The second one is 8Z Bridge. Now, we have partnered with some outside companies, Homeward in particular, but we also started our own internal bridge program. But it allows people to simply buy before they sell. The really cool part about that, of course, buying before you sell is amazing, right? Because they get to find the solution before they actually have to sell. But it does a few other things. It makes their offer a cash offer when they're buying, which helps them, gives them major leverage in the market, and helps them be more competitive as they go along. And then you get to sell a vacant house. Now, who doesn't want to do that if they're going to list? And the last one is just traditional instant or open market, excuse me.
Yep, no, that's such great information. Had a listing over the weekend. I believe we got 13, 14 offers. One of them, Doug, used a company called Ribbon, which would be similar to Homeward, and it turned that financed offer into an all cash offer. They also offered a little bit more money. It was guaranteed, no appraisal contingency, things like that. Guess which one the seller took?
No contingency, cash offer. Cleve, it happened last week. We had an offer accepted 100,000 under the highest offer, but because ours was cash and theirs was contingent.
Whoa, and was your buyer using one of those programs to turn it into a cash offer?
Absolutely, they were leveraging our bridge program.
That is so huge. And what's interesting is you're really providing the consumer a service, even if it costs them more money. And it's not for the agent to decide what program everybody needs to use, but I think in today's market it sure is important for the agents to educate the consumer on all of the different options available. We have already discussed this subject, but I want to see, Doug, if there's anything else you want to add. Is that you just overwhelm is not the right word. You really help educate your consumer on their house, on market area, things like that. Is there anything else you'd like to add on this subject?
Yeah, I think we, you started the webinar talking about fatigue, and certainly I know agents are very fatigued. Buyers are fatigued as well. And I got some compelling statistics. We have an in-house lender, and I did a little straw poll with them of how many offers, just traditional offers, not conventional. So, they're not contingent, but how many offers is it taking to get across the finish line right now as a conventional offer? And the answer was 8. And I went, wow. So then I went to our cash buyer program and our bridge program. And I said, how many offers is it taking to get across the finish line? 1.2. So I would say that almost agents would absolutely like to get across the finish line in 1.2 as opposed to 8. And then think about buyers. There are convenience fees to these programs, but would you pay 2% more to only have to get it done on the first one in that house that you missed 7 times ago? I think most consumers would say yes.
100%. And when you think about it, you increase the chances of them winning the bid by 85%. 1.2 is a decrease of 85% over 8, and those numbers are huge, and we should certainly talk about that. Doug, thank you so much for all of your great information today. Mahala, thank you so much. Mac, thanks for being here and sponsoring. Talk to us a little bit about what an attendee could do if they wanted to get a little quick tour, a product tour of Boomtown.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Cleve. Appreciate you, Doug. Mahala is awesome. Learned a ton here. If y'all want to check out Boomtown, we certainly encourage y'all to do so. We've got a little link right here, boomtownroi.com/product-tour. We've also sent some handouts to RISMedia to upload here. I believe it's in the handout section for the attendees. So 3 pro tips to attract sellers and win listings, and then ultimate seller lead strategy for real estate agents. We're all about seeking and sharing knowledge. That's one of our main core values. So we love to have an opportunity to share a lot of the things that we're learning from all of our incredible clients and put that back out into the real estate universe because we feel it's the right thing to do. So we just feel fortunate to be involved with all of y'all and be partnered with some incredible people and always be learning so we can help everyone else be better.
Mac, thank you so much. For all of you who are on, a copy of a link to the video of the presentation will be sent to you sometime after the webinar is over. You can see to the left there, those are the 2 handouts, the free giveaways that Boomtown is providing, and the information included is amazing. I read about 3 or 4 pages in each one of them, Mac, and I am so glad that I have those in my business. Also, a couple of free downloads. You can get a copy of 12 tips for negotiating multiple offers. I heard somebody say the other day that you can't tell somebody how to win in multiple offer situations after they get into a multiple offer situation. You have to tell them before, and this could be a guide for you to work through sort of a multiple offer strategy. There's another document, 6 tips for dealing with emotions. Sometimes people really get frustrated when they're negotiating, especially in today's market when it's really so lopsided. And so feel free to take that, copy it, customize it for your own brokerage and use it. And then the last item is a graphic of the inventory in Middle Tennessee. So this is around Murfreesboro, south of Nashville. And you can see the green areas are areas where there is more inventory. The yellow areas are where inventory is average, and the red areas are where inventory is very low. And it is such a creative way, Doug and Mahala, to generate leads because they're saying we can tell you where sellers will be more motivated than others. I really appreciate you, Mahala, you, Doug, you, Mark, Mac. I really appreciate every bit that you contributed to today's webinar, and I hope everybody who attended got at least 1 or 2 things you can take and use to change the narrative about low inventory in your market area. Take care, and we'll see you next month.